I don't think any police department, any security organization ever can 100% guarantee total security.
The processes and structures we put in place allow us to be as prepared as possible for those eventualities.
The unknown will always be the unknown.
Alberta is preparing one of Canada's largest security challenges, with the scheduled G7 summit coming to Kananaskis country mid-June. The G7, or Group of Seven, brings together the 7 leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada for meetings on macroeconomics, international security, human rights, and geopolitics. The 3-day summit at the Pomeroy Kananaskis Mountain Lodge beginning June 15th. Because of the global attention at such an event, for some, this is a rare opportunity to try and disrupt proceedings, which over the year has led to the need for heightened security. Also fueling the discussions of heightened security at the G7 is United States President Donald Trump, having survived an assassination attempt and receiving criticism from many Canadians about tariffs and our sovereignty. Some security experts suggesting Alberta should be on an even higher alert for the possibility of protests and disruptions to our daily lives. That requires immense preparation. In this half hour, City News dives into those safety concerns with the 2 people tasked with securing the G7. David Hall, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Chief Superintendent and Integrated Safety and Security Group Event Security Director, as well as Joe Brar, Superintendent Event Security Director for the Calgary Police Service. We'll introduce you to residents impacted near the meeting area, which will be closed off to the public, and the people living and working around designated protest zones in Calgary and Banff. We'll also discuss the hidden unknowns of this event with cybersecurity specialist Kathy McDonald. We begin with the men leading the security operation. This is a world event.
Yes, it is.
How do you plan for a world event? Less than 365 days?
That's a great question, and that's a question I had as well, because I'm new to this type of work, and I quickly learned that through our partners at the RCMP that we form what's called the Integrated Safety and Security Group, and that's the planning group. We bring all the partners together that are involved in safety and security, get together in a room for a period of the last 9 months to plan this event.
The ISSG includes the Calgary Police Service, Alberta Sheriffs, conservation officers, and the Canadian Armed Forces, all of which focus on motorcade support, securing hotels and sites where dignitaries will be staying, wildlife management teams to help reduce harmful human-wildlife interactions, deployment of specialized teams such as public order units, and transportation and processing of individuals charged with crimes if necessary. As superintendent of the ISSG, what does your day look like, Mr. Hall?
In my role, a big part of that is helping to coordinate amongst those agencies, and each agency brings with it their own expertise, their own sort of niche skills and we're leveraging all of that. And so, from a inwards-looking perspective, my day is very busy managing those partnerships. And then, of course, we're also working closely with the Government of Canada through the Summit Management Office, and that sort of strategic level partnership is a big part of what eats up my day.
How do you two not step on each other's toes? There's so many people, so many organizations that are involved.
Yeah.
Everything from the military, the RCMP, the CPS. It just goes on and on and on. How is it that no one, or are these different groups stepping on each other's toes?
Well, I think so. Let's answer the first question. How do we not step on each other's toes? I think we come close, but that's where being integrated in that and co-located into one area where we can have these conversations and work through things and make sure that roles are clear. And we define some of that stuff right at the get-go, is like who's responsible for what and who's supporting and who has a primary role and who has a role where they're just informed. We worked all those things out at the beginning of this, and I think that's really helped to make sure that we're not getting into each other's lanes and we're supporting each other. And if it's not...
Is there fear, though, that maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen?
No.
No.
That's, when I mentioned that in that integrated environment, how each organization brings its own specialties to the table, and as Joe's mentioned, like, we're very clear on who owns which responsibilities. And so from a legislative perspective, the RCMP is responsible for protection of the internationally protected persons, the IPPs.
That type of protection from Canada's National Policing Agency is a familiar task. In 2002, Kananaskis also played host to the then G8 summit, which included Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Building on that experience, designated security groups continue to prepare for all possible situations, from acts of terrorism to daily life disruptions.
And of course, the RCMP is the police of jurisdiction in some areas where the summit is occurring. But similarly, Calgary Police are the police of jurisdiction in the city of Calgary. And so from a policing perspective, it's very clear to us what things are the responsibility of the police of jurisdiction. So in the city here, very clear what Calgary Police's responsibilities are. When we look at the broader area of operations, one of the things I really like to highlight is the conservation officers and the fish and wildlife enforcement officers. They bring a specialty that neither of our agencies can do in terms of wildlife mitigation. And so when we start planning for an event of this size, it's all about assigning responsibilities, and then within our planning team, it's very clear to all those leads, well, this is my area or it's not my area. And that's really how we avoid stepping on each other's toes.
We don't want to be in a situation, a serious situation, a security risk situation, where someone looks over at someone else and says, wait a minute, this is not my responsibility, this is your responsibility. So there is no fear of that?
No.
Still to come, how the ISSG and the CPS plan to address event disruptors.
We're always building on what we've learned in the past, and I think what policing in Canada has learned is that it's always better to work with organizers of protests and demonstrations.
June 15th is the start of the 3-day G7 summit in Kananaskis country. Security preparations have been underway since June 2024. Coordinated efforts from the RCMP and the Integrated Safety and Security Group, ISSG, are responsible for securing zones and access control traffic and park management, public safety patrols, designated demonstration zones, protecting critical infrastructure, emergency response preparedness, and collaborative monitoring and intelligence.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to remember is we're not starting from scratch here. This isn't the first G7 summit or G8 summit that Canada's hosted. We hosted one here in 2002, and you know what, there is the G20, G8 in Huntsville 2010, Charlevoix in 2018, Winter Olympics in 2010, and as a result of all those events, there was operational plans and after action plans that were left for people like myself and Dave to review, and there's recommendations put forward on how to run these events. So we're not starting from scratch, we're just improving on what was done last time.
That's one of the things that's playing in your favor. Another thing that's playing in your favor, security-wise, is that you're in an isolated location. It's easier to, rather than being downtown Calgary, I can't even imagine the logistics there, security-wise, but other than an isolated location like K-Country, what else is playing in your favor?
I think, like Dave mentioned before, this isn't the first time that the RCMP and the Calgary Police Services work together. This isn't the first time where mutual aid partners from other provinces and other cities have worked with the RCMP and Calgary Police Service. I think we have those working relationships from the past. That's working in our favor. A common understanding and agreement on what our mission is. Role clarity, I think, is working in our favor. It's those things.
And it also does help that you have designated protest areas as well. True?
Yes.
Otherwise known as demonstration zones, there are 2 in Calgary, both locations chosen because of their high visibility, media access, and capacity to safely accommodate large crowds. One is based at the Municipal Plaza building in front of City Hall along McLeod Trail Southeast and Enoch East Victoria Park. The ISSG superintendent goes on to say that an additional zone by the airport is also pinpointed for demonstrations at Edward H. Laborde viewing area, located at 15th Street and McKnight Boulevard Northeast. Banff also has a location for a demonstration zone. This site at Fenland's Banff Recreation Center, located just off of Norquay Road. But be warned, CPS Superintendent Brar says there will be zero tolerance for any activity that threatens public safety, with ISSG Superintendent Hall adding,
our goal is always about ensuring that demonstrations are peaceful, lawful, and safe. And so the establishment of those zones, whether they're here in the city or outside the city, it's not something we can force people we can't force people to go to them, but by offering those spots and working with the organizers, it's the best way we have to try to ensure that things are safe for the demonstrators and for the public at large.
With the possibility of protests in a city populated by visiting dignitaries and their teams, Calgarians should expect disruptions to their daily lives.
I think for us, one of the missions for the Calgary Police Service and working in the ISG was to make sure that any disruptions to Calgarians as a result of the G7 summit are, first of all, minimal disruptions and temporary disruptions. So you will see, the local Calgarians will see a lot of motorcade movements, things that we don't normally see. It'll be, a lineup of limousines being escorted by motorcycles or traffic cars. With lights and sirens flashing for a brief period of time. They move pretty fast, they move pretty smoothly, and they'll be out of the city quick, but that's to be expected. I think we'll see large demonstrations is what we anticipate in some of the dedicated demonstration zones and outside of those. And then I think we'll just see an influx of people in the city, especially in the downtown core. But we're not anticipating any major disruptions to everyday life in Calgary.
Yeah, and I think, to Joe's point, as delegations are being moved around, I think that the impacts of that on the average Calgarian really are temporary, in the sense that you may see rolling intersection blocks while we move people through those areas, but in terms of standing closures, not really part of, I don't want to speak for Calgary, but not really part of the plan outside of that controlled access zone that we're establishing around Kananaskis.
Is cybersecurity one of those risks?
Cybersecurity is absolutely, I'd say it's a new risk compared to the last summit in Canada in 2018. And, it is, it's an area where we have partners across the federal government who have a role in cybersecurity, ensuring that government networks and systems are protected, being prepared to react if there's like a cyber attack, but also to outreach and leverage community partners and critical infrastructure and how they can protect their networks as well.
Up next, City News talks with former 25-year veteran with the Calgary Police Service and now cybersecurity expert Kathy McDonald about facing a hidden threat that could impact the 2025 G7 Summit.
I think that cyber will be a big part of it, although you may not see it or hear about it.
You're watching City Connect. I'm Phoenix Phillips. During the past year, there have been concerted efforts to secure the G7 summit in Kananaskis country, with an established 30-kilometer no-fly zone over the meeting area, as well as ground support from the Canadian military, RCMP, and CPS. Designated protest sites have been established in Banff and Calgary to try and minimize disruptions to the lives of residents. 2002 was the last time Alberta hosted this summit, and at that time, the internet, as we know, it was in its infancy, and cyber threats were of minimal concern. Fast forward 23 years, cybersecurity is now at the forefront of an event like the G7 Summit, according to cybersecurity specialist Kathy McDonald.
Well, cybersecurity is something that it's hard to put your finger on it, because cyber is everywhere. It's a big part of our life, obviously. Everything that we're doing online, it's our online existence, the whole environment of cyber, how we communicate, how we socialize. how we learn things. It's a big part of our life, and I think cybersecurity is just protecting that environment.
So when we have something like the G7, where you have these world leaders coming to one area, it's an opportunity, would you say, for those who are have nefarious intentions in mind to, what would they do with cybersecurity? How could it really affect an event like the G7?
Well, I think that, those powerful forces and factors and bad actors and scammers and cyber criminals, even state-sponsored actors, but you think about the anarchists and the activists, they're looking for those opportunities where we're weaker and more vulnerable. And I think a big event like a G7, it's very distracting and disruptive, and it can be chaotic. So our state of mind is already going to be more vulnerable to attack, especially cyber. So those bad actors, they take advantage of those distractions. So it's a perfect environment for them to thrive.
Up next, G7 information centers are in place to address questions concerning security. We visit with one located outside the summit site at the Stony Dakota Resort, and residents weigh in on possible disruptions they're expecting.
And then at the hospitals in Banff and I believe Canmore, we have an extra doctor on staff for the time, extra ambulance, just extra services overall.
To keep local shop owners and community members informed about security measures, as well as restrictions and delays leading up to the G7 summit in Kananaskis, the Integrated Safety and Security Group has set up information hubs. RCMP Constable Lauren Mowbray oversees the Stony Dakota Information Hub, 20 minutes outside of the G7 summit location.
What we're here to do is to inform them about what's actually going to happen and how we can minimize the impacts that it is going to have on them. And if there is something that is kind of a one-off or a question that we haven't seen, we will get back to them. So we'll take their information and we'll get back to them with the answer.
For Renee, a Banff resident working for the local hospital, she says staff continues to gear up for what may happen.
We have an extra doctor on staff for the time, extra ambulance, just extra services overall, even extra administration workers, and extra training that we've been doing just in case any casualties, anything does happen. We're just being very as prepared as we can be. Yeah.
How are you dealing with all of this new stuff happening?
I think
Does it make you nervous?
For me, it did at first, but then I think because there's so many preparations going into it, that puts us at ease, knowing that for at least 2 months, people have been preparing for the G7 summit, and we should hopefully have a lot of security for that weekend. So if it were me, I wouldn't want to visit the Kananaskis or Banff or Canmore area the week of the G7 summit, probably like 2 weeks surrounding it, just because there's so much going on. Even at the Banff Center, a lot of places are actually closed because of that, so you won't be able to go to the Banff Center to charge your car or to go to the gym or for any services. So a lot of things won't be normal that weekend, so I wouldn't come here expecting to have the touristy experience that you want to have.
Those living in Canmore with similar feelings, but taking more of a wait-and-see approach. This from 20-year resident Eric.
You know, it's a little bit of a bummer that some of the recreating's being shut down for a couple weeks, but it'll pass and we'll get back out there and it'll be okay. I mean, I don't think we'll see much of an issue in town. I mean, realistically, it's going to happen. It's going to happen for a couple weeks, and then it will hopefully just move on and we can get back to doing what we do.
90 kilometers east of Banff, this Calgarian empathizes with her mountain neighbors, but welcomes the attention on Alberta.
I think it's important to have the leaders recognize Canada on a world stage again. I think maybe we were forgotten there for a little bit over the past couple of years. So in terms of the day-to-day, I feel bad for the people of Canmore and Banff that will be having to deal with the motorcades and the traffic and the locals that are just out there living their lives. But on an international stage, I think it's a great opportunity for Calgary and Alberta to shine on an international stage and host the world's leaders.
I don't expect much impact at all. I think lots of crazy things have happened in and around our city over the years, and we've always embraced it with positive energy and positive outlook, and I think we'll continue to do so. Calgary is good for that.
There's a protest site not more than 2 blocks away from here. Does that concern you?
No, not at all. I think the City of Calgary, our police services, our mayor, and everyone has always done a fantastic job at making sure that they're handled properly. There's people that people are safe, and that we're doing it in an appropriate manner, whichever way you fall on it. So I don't think it's going to be an issue at all.
One of those leaders is a guy by the name of President Donald J. Trump.
Never heard of him.
Who's that? Who's that?
Is he hot?
After Alberta hosted the G8 in 2002, the research group created a lesson learned report, identifying key safety factors to be implemented for future events. They include the importance of seamless coordination between different agencies for effective security, the need for a designated authority empowered to make critical decisions, especially in the face of an imminent threat, and creation of a community relations group within the security team. With those practices and agencies now in place that include the RCMP, ISSG, CIG, the Canadian military, and conservation agents to secure the G7, the one primary focus remains: to ensure the safety and security of summit participants, local communities, and visitors, while also maintaining public order and safety. A safety standard that will soon be tested and measured come June 15th. For City News Connect, I'm Phillips.